Imagine with me for a moment a butterfly softly flapping its wings in a meadow. It seems small, it seems insignificant, but over time, those tiny flutters ripple through the air, colliding with the wind until miles and miles away, a storm begins to brew. That is chaos theory in action. Now imagine this. As a leader of a movement, a nonprofit, or an organization, your decisions today, however small they seem, are those butterfly wings. In this moment of chaos and bigotry and cruelty, your leadership matters more than ever. Every action you take ripples outward. So the question is, are you going to use your wings to steady the storm or to let the storm take control? Hi, I'm Nkoyo Effiong Lewis, your guide through the real, raw, and relentless challenges of leading change in a world that often resents it. If you are a bold, audacious leader, tired of the status quo, and ready to make real impact, you're in the right place. This is the Leadership Revolt, where we disrupt outdated norms, reimagine what's possible, and lead with courage, clarity, and conviction. So you ready to disrupt the status quo? Let's go. Today is January 25th, 5 days after the transition into power of this new administration. And I know for many of you who are listening here, you are watching in horror as some of the most cruel and hateful, unkind, chaotic, disruptive forces are happening in our highest office in the United States. And if you've been following me, I'm going to assume that, like me, you did not vote for this type of chaos, that hopefully you read Project 2025 before we got to the place of living it out. And maybe you didn't. Maybe you did choose this. Maybe you thought it wouldn't be as bad, or it was all hyperbole or whatever, but you're here now seeing how some of the executive orders and the policies and the things that have been laid out for this future of America don't align with your values and your convictions, or are perhaps more cruel and inhumane than you had anticipated. And you're feeling like, what can I possibly do in this moment? What can I possibly say? How can I lead? How can I do the things that my community needs? Many of you are leaders in your own right, either leading movements. Perhaps you're running for office or considering that. Perhaps you are running a nonprofit or social impact business, or you are a professional who is trying to urge your colleagues to shift in the way that they do things and show up in the world. And if you're in any of those spaces, of course, we welcome you here to this conversation. And I want to share with you some nuggets about leading through uncertainty, leading through chaos. And it's funny because I really first started having this conversation around the time of the pandemic. I did a talk called Interrupted: How to Navigate Disruption with Courage, Clarity, and Conviction. And more body of work of mine, that content has come back and shown up in the conversations that I'm having with leaders, whether they're my clients or folks that are following along in my networks on this podcast, other places. And while I say that, quick reminder to make sure that if you're not already following us, hit the bell, like, subscribe, rate, and review, so that we can continue to grow this movement and that these conversations can continue to move people forward. But what's really important, what I want to make sure that I share with you today, is that we can lead through uncertainty, that we've never been here before, that there is no blueprint, there's no information that we can't take and glean to assist our leadership. And in fact, I'm going to speak a little bit about chaos theory, which I found when I was first talking about leading disruption. And I'm a type A type of person. My husband loves to joke that I'm a control freak. I like to feel like there's a level of control. And I think many of us do. When we find ourselves in a world where there's less control, when things feel out of control, we can see some of the less beautiful things happen from us. There's a great book, Change Enthusiasm, that talks about anytime people go through change, there are signal emotions that come out. Fear, anger are two that come to mind immediately, that a lot of times, despite the fact that people might want the result of the change, they don't like to go through change. And often many of us are creatures of comfort, and we don't enjoy that. So I came to learning about chaos theory there because we were in that time, a very uncertain period, right? We were seeing technology make advancements. There was a whole global shutdown with the pandemic. There was a whole racial re-reckoning, allegedly, that was happening. Like, we were all sort of stuck and paralyzed in this world where we didn't know what was happening or what would be next. And so I got to thinking and learning about chaos theory, which is like the science of surprises, I guess is what they will call it. And so I think that having this conversation about that today will be really helpful for us around how we move and lead forward. And so we're living through a storm. I want to be very honest about that. I want to be very candid about that we are living in a moment of time where things are quite unnerving, where every day it's something else. And people are definitely getting overloaded and stressed out on the internet and listening to all of the news and all of the shocking things. And I want to say, which many people have been saying, that is a strategy. It is an approach to overwhelm all of our nervous systems, to make it seem like it is impossible, that all these things are happening so quickly that there's no time or energy or anything to shift. And I started by saying, if you read Project 2025, ain't nothing new that they're about to do. It's all stuff that they wrote about in that 900-page document. And it's all stuff that we have seen if you our study of history, both in the U.S. and around the world. And so we don't have, at this moment in time, the luxury of being shocked. We don't have the luxury of being overwhelmed by this. We have to really figure out, as leaders who are advancing social justice, social impact and change that positively improves the world for all people, regardless of race, class, identity, gender, all of these things, religion, that are being used and thrown to pit us apart. We don't have the luxury of sitting in outrage right now. We have to be strategic. We have to be thoughtful. We have to be mindful. And those are things that you simply cannot do when your nervous system is overloaded. And so today I want to talk with you about how we move through this moment. And this moment is not just a political moment in time. This is a moral moment. This is an opportunity for us to really live out our values. And for those of you who are faith-based, like myself, who consider yourselves believer of any higher power, this is an opportunity to demonstrate that faith in action right now and to be really intentional. This moment is not for the faint of heart. It is not for the weak-willed. It is not for those who lack courage or conviction. The stakes are high. The threats are real. They have literally started doing some of things that many people have said would never have happened. Is unconscionable. It's happening. And the question for leaders like yourself and I is not whether we will act. The question is whether we will act with intention. This is our butterfly moment, because every decision that we make in this chaos, including the non-decisions that I hope we will make intentionally, everything about how we show up, where we direct our resources, who we choose to center in the work, what work we choose to focus on, all of these things will have a ripple effect that will shape the future for better or for worse. And so I don't come here being grave or hyperbolic, you can call it whatever you want, without intention. I have said consistently for the longest time that history is in the making, that we are literally making history right now. And I have been reading a lot of books, I tell you, if you've been joining me on about the brain and all these different things that really focus on this idea that the only thing that we currently have is now. That is the only thing that is real. That is the only thing that exists, as the book would say, both in the spiritual and in science, through what quantum physics would say. The past, we can't do anything about. It's already occurred. The future, we can't hold. The only thing that we can do is make decisions today, act, be fully present today, and know that the butterfly flapping that we're doing in our decisions will have a ripple effect that will move us forward to each and every day. When I went away to school and I was starting to figure out how to live life on my own, I got very overwhelmed by all the decisions, all the things that you have to be responsible as you adult. And what my parents always said to me is, it's one day at a time. And so I want to give you some tips for how you can manage your one days at a time as we move through a period of time that will intentionally be cruel, that will intentionally be chaotic, that will intentionally be overwhelming. And I think if you know that and you're aware of that, you can make smarter, stronger, better decisions for yourself and the people who are watching you move through this very moment. And here's the really great news about chaos. One, chaos is a system and everything has a beginning and an end. So we can't exist in that amount of chaos forever, not without our consent. And so chaos doesn't mean inaction. It doesn't mean that we have to be or that we are helpless. It just means that we have to focus our energy where it matters most. So how can we do that? Well, I would love to leave you with 5 actions that you can take right now to lead with courage and intention through the storm. And some of them are probably going to be things that you've heard me say again, over and over again, because I'm consistent, honey. The message is the same. We have got to decide what fights we're fighting, for whom, with whom, and why, and be very focused on that. This is a season that is going to require our laser focus. I have mentioned when I used to teach, we talked about planned ignoring. Like, there are going to be those students in class that are going to act out or misbehave for whatever reason, right? You have to make a decision about when you engage it and when you ignore. I'm a parent of toddlers. We have to think about this planned ignoring. Everything can't get a reaction. It's really literally exhausting. And so I'm in a relationship. For those of you who are, we talk a lot about pick your battles. And this is a moment where that level of intentionality, clarity, and focus is absolutely required. So let's jump into 5 actionable steps that you can take in this moment to lead with courage and intention in the midst of all of the chaos that is surrounding us. And the very first one is my favorite. I always love to start very big. I tell you all, leadership is an inside job first. Like, you got to get right with yourself. You got to get clear with yourself about who you are becoming, who you are being. And so the very first step that you need to take to lead with courage and intention through this chaos is to be crystal clear on your values. There is no more time for half-stepping. There's no more time for fence-sitting. There's no more time for whataboutism and arguing both sides or playing devil's advocate. Side note, devil doesn't need an advocate. He's good, been good. Y'all read the Bible? Anyway, that's another conversation. You have to be crystal clear on your values. Nobody else can define those for you. You need to be honest with yourself about your values. And those values need to be the boundary, the line with which you will not cross, which you will determine all of what your actions are as we are moving forward day by day. Your values are your anchor in the chaos. Write them down, revisit them daily. Let them guide every decision you make. If justice, equity, and compassion are at the core, make sure your actions align. We should know what you value by the way that you show up in the world, how you lead, how you engage with others, the decisions that you make. It should be clear. And one of the things that I hate is, you have all these organizations that will say one thing, and then the people that work for them talk about these terrible things that happen and a culture that just does not align with the values that they're espousing to the world. Don't be like those leaders. Be in alignment. Do the work to be in alignment and be honest with yourself. If you don't value justice and equity and those things, just be honest with yourself about where you are in the fight. Don't gaslight us. Don't pretend to be allies and co-conspirators if those are not things that align. You need to really be true to your values right now, because they will be challenged, they will be shaken, and you have to be able to look at yourself ultimately in the mirror every day and be confident of the way that you're showing up. And there's just so much misinformation, disinformation, distrust happening that as leaders, we cannot be wishy-washy about where we stand. We have to be very clear for the people that we are leading so they can make the best choice for themselves. And we can make sure that we are holding and honoring the work that we need to in the way that we need to in this moment. The second thing that I will say, it was just hard for me too, but this is one thing I'm really pushing myself on, is to focus on small, intentional steps. You don't need to save the world in one move. In fact, it's not possible, and any effort to do that will burn you out. And what I really know is we cannot afford to lose anyone in this fight to exhaustion or burnout, because they're planning to bring full throttle all the things that they can to stress us out, to silence us, to scare us, to do all these things to make us shrink. And we actually have to be bigger in this moment to make sure that we don't miss the opportunity to preserve a future that is better for all of us. And so in focusing on these small intentional steps, I want you to think about one thing your organization or community or cause can do today. Again, focusing on the present. What is one thing you can do today that, like the butterfly that continues to flutter over time, can have a ripple effect that causes the storm, that causes the resistance that is necessary in this moment? Maybe that one thing is creating a safe or a brave space for dialogue. Maybe it's launching a campaign or a fundraiser or some sort of info advocacy type work to make sure people know what's going on. Maybe it's amplifying marginalized voices and stories. Maybe it is holding joy and being a place where people can come for respite and positivity. And there's a woman on Threads who shares daily wins, which I love. I started following her because it feels overwhelming to see all these horrible things that I would never want to see happen. And every day she's like, well, here are some 3 things that like people who care about the world being a place that's inclusive for everybody could be happy about. Here are some things that you can see that not everyone feels like the way that the world is going right now, the way that the US is moving right now is okay and appropriate. That can help to just restore hope. So maybe that's your one thing, is that you feel hope, that you give people a timeline cleanse so they have an opportunity to see something that reminds them that life is great. Maybe it is giving yourself a moment to turn off all of your devices and all of this doom scrolling and terrible news and just be present with the people that you love and care about so that you can feel those positive emotions in this moment. Whatever it is, I encourage you to focus on that small intentional steps and be consistent about doing them. So not only do you need to get crystal clear on your values, not only do you need to focus on small intentional steps, you need to build coalitions. And I have been screaming this for a while. You need to get into community. You need to be in community. You need to find community. We're not going to survive this alone. In fact, humans were not meant to be alone. We are mammals. And like other mammals, biologically, we group together. We find partners or communities. We move in herds, etc. And so this whole idea of, rogue individualism is killing us. It's literally killing us. We're in this moment of time where there is a huge unhappiness and loneliness epidemic. People are sick and shut in. Mental health issues are on the rise. So many things are going on. Despite the fact that we have all these connection channels, people feel less connected. And so I urge you, like they say, to go touch grass, to get out and find other people who are doing this work and connect. And I will say, I believe that some of this a good portion of this at this moment in time has to happen in real life. I'm not really sure what's going on with these social media platforms and the access and the algorithm and all these things. And so they may or may not be safe places for you to do your most intentional work and coalition building with others. So I encourage you to find people online, etc., wherever, and actually to find offline ways to meet and engage, or more secure ways than just social media. You don't have to lead alone. We cannot solve the problems that have gotten us here by ourselves. And so it's really important that you're reaching out to other organizations, other leaders, and other individuals in your community to do this together. In chaos, collaboration is our greatest strength. I'm going to say that again. In chaos, collaboration is our greatest strength. Go and find your collaborators. Do that urgently for your spirit, for your mind, for your body, and for the work that needs to happen. No one should be an island. No one should do this alone. I know I had mentioned on a previous podcast that we were thinking about slowing and waiting on the collective in light of what 5 days into this new administration is. I think we're moving full steam ahead with building community and finding ways to engage with people off platform, off of social media, in real life to the extent that we can, and in other platforms that allow for more two-way free conversation. And so please be on the lookout for that. The collective is your brave space. It is designed to give bold, audacious leaders the space, strategy, and support they need to go lead audaciously, and again, to master themselves so they can master the work that they have been called to do. And so I hope that you will consider joining us inside of the collective so that you can get into community if you haven't been able to find that, and work alongside, learn alongside other leaders who share your values, your conviction, your desires to see the world be a much better place. In addition to getting clear on your values, focusing on small intentional steps, building coalitions, number 4, we want you to communicate with clarity and compassion. I'm going to repeat, communicate with clarity and compassion. It is a dumpster fire out there in a lot of spaces. And I think social media over the decades that it's been here has really emboldened people to be these keyboard warriors who lack empathy, who say whatever, who get spicy with people and don't think about how there's actually a human being, a living, breathing human being on the other end of those communications. I think we've all been there. We've popped off and said something or typed something that maybe we would have never said in person, or maybe we thought about it. But there's a lot going on with your team, the people who support you, your community, everyone. They're watching you. They're taking their cues from you. It is important that you are transparent. Clarity is kind about what's happening, and that you inspire them with a vision of what is possible. And again, it's going to be really hard to do that without being clear on your values. And the first, steps that we've taken is just sort of thinking about what are intentional actions, what are a few steps that you can take consistently to move the needle forward. But it's important that you will be transparent, that you will inspire. In chaos, people don't just need direction, they need hope. They don't just need direction, and you may not have all the answers for that. And again, the huge plug for why you should be in coalition and connecting with other leaders. Bright minds together can really come up with clarity and better solutions than you trying to figure it out on your own. But you need to be able to give people hope that there is something that can happen from this, that there are things that can be improved or better. And I actually am really a proponent of that. I'm a true believer of that. When the pandemic happened, I said we had an incredible opportunity to reimagine what we were doing in education, in work, and some of that happened and has totally freaked people out. And so we're trying to run back to what used to be, but the world has shifted. There is no going back at this point. There simply is no going back. And we have to figure out how to co-create what the future looks like. And so you want to make sure that you are thinking about what the direction is, that you are being imaginative in this space, and that you're looking for the silver lining and the opportunities that are there, because that is the place where we can hold our hope and we can share and build hope. They want us to feel hopeless and that nothing can be done. Hope is resistance, and it is our charge as leaders to continue to hold hope, because we are the ones who are called to lead the way, to find the path, to see the way, to show the way, to take people on that, which is a huge responsibility. I understand that. But it's also a really important task. And you would not be in leadership if you didn't have the skills, the characteristics, the habits of mind and being that are necessary to do it. And so, again, we want to make sure that we're communicating with clarity and compassion, that we're being honest and forthright with people, that we are offering suggestions around the direction to go, and that we are, in everything that we're doing, maintaining hope and instilling that in the people who are following us. And the fifth and final thing that you can do to lead through chaos, to get out and get through this period of time as best as possible, dare I say even thrive in this chaos, is to take care of yourself. And I keep coming back to this. This is a full circle thing, right? We started with know your values. We're ending with take care of yourself, because leadership is an inside job first. And if you are not well, you cannot lead others well. And so you can't, my favorite thing to say is you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead others if you're running on empty. So it is important that you prioritize your rest. You've heard me talk a lot about rest, that you prioritize your boundaries, and that you prioritize your joy. This storm isn't going to pass overnight. We need leaders who can endure. And so that means that you have to find hope, that you have to find joy, even in the long suffering, so that you can continue to get up every day and do the work. I know that was a lot of things I just kind of threw out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If any of these 5 really stuck out to you, if so, why, which one? Do you feel like it was the nugget that you really needed right now as we're moving through? I can't believe it's only been 5 days of this administration. That is the totally utter wild part. But I hope that these 5 tips have given you actionable ways that you can lead with courage and intention through the chaos. As leaders, I'm going to leave you with this parting thought. As leaders, we don't always get to choose the circumstances and conditions that we work in, but we do get to choose how we show up and how we serve. This is a moment for intentionality, for courage, for ripple-worthy actions. Because if chaos theory has taught us anything, it's that the smallest acts can create the biggest change. And in these moments of uncertainty, where we're sitting here thinking about how's all of this falling apart, and it's literally only 5 days, this is a unique opportunity for us to rebuild systems that are broken, to inspire hope and clarity in our communities, and to drive intentional change that redirects the chaos towards something constructive. Even chaos operates within a boundary. That is what chaos theory will tell us, that nothing is out there that could go on forever on its own without some sort of limit. For me, as someone who has a controlling tendency, is very type A, that is a reassuring thought that at some point it has to give. And we can be the force that causes this chaos to find clarity quicker, faster, etc., by being consistent in the way that we show up. How you lead today will impact tomorrow. And so my question for you is, how will you choose to lead? How will you show up each and every day so that this storm feels just a little bit overwhelming? Please let me know in the comments what decisions you will make to lead with intention and courage and make this a little less overwhelming for yourself and for others. If today's episode resonated with you and you are ready to explore how intentional rest and community and clarity of your vision and having different structures in place to support you can transform your leadership, then I invite you to join us inside the collective. Again, it is a brave space for you to think and learn alongside others, to develop the strategy, to gather the support that you need to do big, bold, bad, audacious things. And that is absolutely what we need in this moment of time. Nobody can convince me of anything else. The status quo will not shift on its own. It is not going to bend. It is not going to trickle down and make things better for all of us. The only way that that moral arc of the universe bends towards justice is if enough of us are willing, courageous, and convicted enough to stomp on it every single day until we break it in the direction that it needs to go. And so I'm calling you into the space to do that alongside me, to do that alongside other leaders. I always say you can lead at any level. You don't have to be in politics. You don't have to be an elected official. You don't even necessarily have to be the CEO of the company to be a leader. But you do have to show up with the habits of mind. You do have to have the courage and the conviction to be intentional in the things that you do, to operate in alignment, to be purposeful, to think about how you can redistribute power in a way that's more equitable for everyone, and how you operate in a way that shows people that better is still before them. And so with that, I hope that you will walk away taking at least 1 or 2 of these things to heart. If it's me, I really would love for you to get clear on your values, to be clear on your boundaries, and to find community. I think that that is the way that we thrive. I think that is the way that we fight back. I think that is the way that we contain chaos and allow it, transform it into something that is constructive, that redesigns the world in the way that it needs to go. And so my hope is that you'll take that with you. If this was useful, please do share it with another bold leader. Subscribe, rate, and review. And let's keep building this movement together. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Leadership Revolt. Remember, leadership isn't about following the rules. It's about rewriting them with audacity, purpose, and integrity. If this episode sparks something for you, share it with another bold leader ready to disrupt the status quo. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so we can keep building this movement together. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and go lead audaciously. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of the day.